Hello, everybody. Today we are talking about the essay Famine, Affluence, and Morality by Peter Singer. Now, this essay can be a little difficult to read, and he has two different lines of argument he's going, a strict view and a moderate view. For this checklist, we're going to talk about the moderate view. Moderate view. That's what you need to know for the homework, for the test. I'll mention a little bit as we go through the checklist about what the strict view is. So, let's start. What is our main philosophical question for this essay? It is, are we morally obligated to feed the starving? So, what are the terms we need to know? For step 2, there's quite a few of them in this essay. So, first of all, moral obligation. Now, this term is, I think, makes people turn away from his essay because people don't like hearing they're obligated to do something. They're like, oh, they think that's like, I don't know, that you're going to have money taken out of your paycheck or it's going to be a law. Moral obligation for Singer is, a moral obligation is something that one must do in order to be considered a good person. So if Peter Singer has a moral obligation of feeding the starving and you don't meet that obligation, all this means is that Singer is now allowed to call you an immoral person because you're not meeting your moral obligations based on the moral obligation he has set. So he's trying actually in the essay to get everybody else to consider feeding the starving a moral obligation. It's a stronger term than just we should all feed the hungry. He's trying to get people to feel obligation about people starving to death. There are people starving to death in this world. When he wrote this essay, and this is an old essay, but it's been talked about ever since he wrote it, there were millions of people dying of starvation. Wait, I think I just oversold it. Anyway, there were a lot of people dying of starvation at the time. He's talking about a specific case of Bengali where there was a large amount of people who were starving to death through no fault of their own. They got caught up in a bad situation. Their government wasn't helping them, couldn't help them. Other governments were sending aid, but not enough to keep people from starving to death. So he was writing this essay at that time. So a moral obligation is something that one must do in order to be considered a moral person. All right. So what is moral? Peter Singer is using, if you think back to supreme moral principle, he's using consequentialism, which is a moral act is one that creates the best consequences. All right, inherent value. These two terms, inherent value and instrumental value, are key. And honestly, how you view human beings and how you view these two terms will play a lot into what you consider to be moral. Inherent value. Something has inherent value if it has value just because it exists. Its very existence is valuable. Even if that item cannot be used to gain any other good thing, its just existence is good. Okay? It's because it exists that it's good. People usually say pretty much that people have inherent value. Not everybody agrees that people are born with value. You have value because you exist. You're a human being. You have value just because you exist. Even if you don't do anything with your life, you still have value because you're a human being and you exist. All right? Inherent value, something has value because it exists. Instrumental value. Instrumental value is the value that something has because it can gain something else of some other kind of good. So we'll take an actual instrument. Let's take a guitar. What is the value in the guitar? Is the value in the guitar the actual guitar? Or is it in the fact that it plays music that you now hear, that you enjoy? So your enjoyment is a value that's come from the guitar or the person playing the guitar. So the guitar has been an instrument to gain something else of value, which is your enjoyment. So something that has instrumental value has value because it's an instrument to gain some other good thing. Now, if we talk about humans again, a human, we're going to assume that a human has both inherent and instrumental value. You may disagree with the fact some people argue that humans only have instrumental value. Some people think inherent value can be lost. For Peter Singer, human beings have inherent value. You cannot lose it. You are a human being, so you have value because you exist. All humans have inherent value. Instrumental value is the value you gain from doing something good. So a human would have both inherent value and instrumental value, according to Singer. The instrumental value is the good you do that you bring about. So if you play the guitar, you're bringing about using the guitar to bring somebody else happiness. Usually if you're supporting a family, you're instrumental to supporting that family, so that's a good that you're bringing about. So somebody could have inherent value and very little, if no, instrumental value if they're not actually bringing about value. Or someone could have an enormous amount of instrumental value depending on what they're doing. Because let's face it, we're all different and we all do different amount of stuff that's good or bad or in between. So you could theoretically have bad instrumental value because you're bringing about bad. But for now, we're focused on the good. All right, so far for our terms, we've talked about moral obligation, moral, inherent value, and instrumental value. Now, the next one is luxury items. I'm going to go ahead and define it now because when we get farther in our checklist, it's going to come into play. What is a luxury item? Well, we can all think right off the top of our heads what's a luxury item. So, let's say I have a basic black leather purse. And that basic black leather purse is $50. And the leather is good because I want it to last a long time. So I got leather instead of plastic. Now, it's a no-name brand purse. The value in that purse is that it'll carry my stuff, and that's good. That's pretty much the value of it. It's the stuff I need to carry with me. Alright, so I have this brown leather purse, $50. The instrumental value of this purse is $50 because it's bringing me a good, and we're going to say it's worth $50. Now, you can disagree or have different ideas of what the instrumental value of a purse is. I'm just using the number to make a point. So I can just feel people going, but I can get a good purse for $30 or I need $100. The idea isn't the amount. It's the idea that you have something of instrumental value. This purse has instrumental value. The purse itself doesn't have value. It's what I do with the purse that has value. What I need from the purse. I need to carry it because I have stuff to carry. Or my pockets will be overflowing. Anyhow, so now I have this purse. It's $50. Now let's compare it to another brown leather purse. It's made exactly the same. It'll get you exactly the same amount of instrumental value. It's going to carry your stuff. Let's say this purse is going to last for 5 years. Well, actually, a really good purse could last for longer, say 10 years. My mother has Coach purses that last for like ever. I'm not going to put the Coach in the luxury item. So now we have the purse, $50. Now there are some purses that people pay $10,000 and $15,000 for. I know it's hard to believe, but they do. Now, Louis Vuitton, I'm trying to think of a really expensive brand, and my mind is blanking because I don't really buy expensive purses. So we'll say Louis Vuitton. All right. It may be something else, but just go with me here. So you got a $50 purse over here. Brown leather lasts about 10 years. Good quality. You got the same instrumental value from the Louis Vuitton. brown leather, lasts about 10 years. The quality is the same. So what's the difference between a $50 purse and a $5,000 purse? This one has another $4,500 added to it. That $4,500 is not giving you more instrumental value of that purse. The instrumental value is what it gives you, and that it gives you practically something to carry your stuff on. All right? So, it's not gaining, you're not getting more instrumental value from it. And the instrumental value is what something is intended to do. So, what are you gaining with that extra $4,000? You're gaining the name brand. Louis Vuitton. People see that and they know you spent a ton load of money on that purse. So, if that extra $4,500 is not adding any instrumental value, that extra $4,500 is what? It's what makes that a luxury item. So we're going to define a luxury item as something that has value because it is used, luxury item. Items that are priced drastically over their instrumental worth based on the name brand. Okay? You do this with cars, like good basic Honda, let's say $30,000. This car is going to last you 20 years. It's going to be good. It's good. What's the value in a car? Here, for value, we're talking about what is the car intended to do? What is the purse intended to do? The car's purpose is to get you from A to B without breaking down and being a reliable form of transportation. Now, for the car enthusiasts who are watching, I'm not talking about all the car stuff. I'm not a car person either. So you got a $30,000 car over here that'll run for 20 years with minimum maintenance that does well. It serves its instrumental value well. Then you have a car over here, Lamborghini. I don't know how much a Lamborghini is worth. Let's say it's worth $300,000. All right, so you've just gone up $270,000. It's going to give you the same instrumental value as the Honda. What's valuable? The name brand. So it's got $270,000 of extra money for what? The name. Same for the purse. So the luxury item, let me say it again, is the items that are priced drastically over their instrumental value. And the extra money isn't gaining any extra instrumental value. You're not getting any more. Like if the Lamborghini would last 40 years instead of 20 years, then it would have more instrumental value. But it doesn't. You're not gaining anything from the instrumental value standpoint. You're just gaining a name brand. So that's what defines a luxury item. The next and the last definition for this particular essay is supererogatory. Supererogatory is an act which is good to do, but it's not wrong not to do. So the definition of a supererogatory act is one, it's good to do. So it would be moral to do it. It's nice. But you're not immoral if you don't do it. So if you're walking by a homeless person and let's say one day you give them $1. Well, that was a nice thing to do. Okay. Now the next day you don't give them $1. So does that make you immoral? No. For this example, we're going to call that a supererogatory act. A supererogatory act is one that is good to do, but it's not immoral not to do. Okay. We'll come back to this term as the checklist moves on. So, now, we're on step 3. Step 3, of course, is the author's answer to the question. And the question was, are we morally obligated to feed the starving? He's going to say, yes, 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 yes. Exclamation point, sorry. All right, so how is he arguing yes? All right, step 4, supporting the author's argument or supporting the author's answer. So, the very basics, human beings have inherent value. A human being dying of starvation is bad. You're losing that inherent value. So if it's in your power to prevent something bad, like the person dying, from happening, then you should do it. unless it's going to cost you something of comparable moral worth. Now, moral worth. One of the things that he does in this essay is he uses the terms inherent value. But he also uses the terms moral worth, moral importance, intrinsic value, moral importance, moral significance, and they're all related to inherent value. So, if you can help them without losing anything of inherent value, then you should do it. Because they have inherent value. And you have inherent value. Their dying is a bad thing. So, if you can prevent it from actually doing anything of comparable pain to you, then you should do it. Alright? So, this is what's going to lead to his strong and his moderate view. The strong view is, well, what does he actually mean by comparable moral worth? If what he means by comparable moral worth is actually inherent value, then what he's saying is, if someone's dying of starvation and they have inherent value, and you have it in your power to save them through donation or whatever way you're going to save them, because he doesn't get into how you actually go about helping them, which is an issue I'll talk about at the very end. Right now, we're talking about, are you morally obligated to try? So, they're dying of starvation. They have inherent value. You have inherent value. If they have value because they exist and you do, then you should help them. Unless it's going to kill you or it's going to hurt your inherent worth. Well, you have value because you exist, so it's going to harm your existence somehow. It's going to take off a limb or something. Then you are morally obligated to help them, unless it's going to harm your inherent value, or it's going to cut off a limb or kill you, or you need to help them. And you help them up to the point where you're in a bad situation yourself, and then you stop because then it's hurting your inherent value if you can't continue. This, everybody hates. When they read this essay, this part of his essay has been, over the years, just, people get very upset. But if you go back to your logic, he's trying to make a logical point. Everybody has inherent value. If everybody has inherent value equally, we all have inherent value because we exist, then their existence is worth as much as your existence. And if you can help them not starve without hurting your existence, then you should do it. Now, that's a strong view. We are not going to go any farther into a strong view. We're going to talk about his moderate view. So once his, okay, sorry, my hair is bothering me. So, what's the moderate view? The moderate view is, if someone's dying of starvation, that's a bad thing. Now, are you morally obligated to help? Yes. In what manner? Anybody that can afford to buy a luxury item and is thinking about buying a luxury item. Let's go to the purse. You have the option of buying the $50 basic leather brown purse, or you have the option of buying the $5,000 Louis Vuitton brown bag. The Louis Vuitton is not giving you any more instrumental value than the brown bag. So you have $4,500 that you're just buying because it's a name brand. This, for Singer, has no value at all. You're not getting any extra value to the purse. And a name brand is your wish to walk around with something that has excessive value, that doesn't gain anything, worth more than a human being's life. So the answer is no. So for his moderate view, he's going to argue that luxury spending of the kind that he's talked about is basically immoral, and that if you do it, he's allowed to call you immoral because you're morally obligated to feed the starving. And if you have excess money, enough to buy a luxury item, you should spend that extra for the purse, $4,500, helping someone to live. Because someone living has more value than you getting a boost from the Louis Vuitton name. And that's the point he's trying to make with the moderate view. Excuse me, I have to drink something. Okay, sorry about that. So, that's his moderate view. Now, I don't have... People go back and forth. How you decide about inherent value, about how important it is, the name brand of these things, people get upset about both his sides. I think the moderate makes sense to me, but the idea isn't about what I think, but about you reading the essay and you evaluating his essay and you figuring out what you think. What are your moral obligations? And moral obligation here, meaning what do you have to do to consider your own self a moral person? All right. So now let's go to step 5, which is the flaw in the argument. This is where we're going to bring in our word supererogatory. People are going to argue that feeding the starving is a supererogatory act, meaning that it's good to do, but it's not immoral not to do. Sorry. I have some kind of tickle in my throat and it's driving me crazy. Sorry. Okay, so if feeding the hungry is supererogatory, means it's good for you to do, but you can't call someone immoral for not doing it. And what is the backup for that flaw? They're basically basing it on history. This is the way we've always viewed certain moral contributions, giving to charities. Charities in our world have always been considered a supererogatory act. It's a good thing if you do it, but it's not immoral not to do it. Now, when does Singer's come back to this? Well, let me finish the idea. So it's not immoral not to do. And the argument against Singer is if you try to make the moral obligation that high, the cost of your moral obligation so high, then just people are just going to not do anything. Because if you expect too much from people, they'll just stop giving entirely. All right. So that would be step 5, the flaw in the argument. Step 6, when is Singer's come back to the flaw? He's going to say, if as a society we all kind of agree, which is why I was writing the essay, he's trying to get people to agree that we have moral obligations and that one of those moral obligations is to feed the starving of the world. If as a society we all change our idea of charity or feeding the starving, then it will increase our moral obligations. And yes, if that leads to some people refusing to help, that's okay, because if the people who accept the argument actually start giving all their luxury spending money to people who are starving, then overall we're in a much better shape than we are now. And that's his reply. Now, that's the end of the checklist. There's multiple issues that people have with this essay, so I'm not even going to go into all of them. One of them is, it's my money, I can spend it how I want. Singer would more or less say, well, yes, it's your money, but if I place my moral obligation, if I consider myself moral based on feeding the starving, and you don't feed the starving, I have a right to call you immoral. It doesn't mean he's going to take you to jail or you're going to lose something. Moral obligation is just what we've said. I'm not going to go into big argument about money. All right. it does seem to be a really sensitive issue with people. I'm almost tempted to find a good philosophy essay for it for next semester, because people get very upset when someone suggests how they should spend their money. So for that one, we're going to table it. The second issue is I just blanked on the second issue. People hate it when you tell them how to spend their money. And it really comes back to this idea of moral obligation. People get really offended when you call something a moral obligation instead of a duty, or they don't like the term obligation. It makes them feel like they're being forced into something, or that someone's going to make a law and make people do it. Based on the definition, that's not it. It's a moral obligation is the obligation, the standard of which you have to meet to consider yourself a moral person. Personally, if I could go back in time, I think Singer should have used a different word, because I think part of the reason that people get so upset at this essay is both of these. They don't like being told that they should do something, like a moral obligation. They hate the word obligation. And the second one is people get really upset about money issues. I just brought them up to let you know. I'm kind of curious. So on the discussion board, let me hear some of your thoughts on this essay and whether you agree with it, disagree with it. And it should make an interesting discussion. Have a good week, and I will see you next week.